Welcome everyone, it's Shari Carroll for SimonsSaysStamp.com, and I have a funny Friday card that I've created, and it is a edge-to-edge shaker card plus a pop-up. So I am working with the Art Impressions pop-up Glamour, and this gal really sings to me with her fur-lined coat and her hat with all the plants and flowers, and it's a leopard print. So I'll be working on her on the inside, but first I'm going to start creating the outside of the card. I'll be stenciling a piece of cardstock. This is Nina 80-pound. Just cut a sheet in half, and the stencil that I'm using is I Like Small Dots from Simon Says Stamp. So I'm going to do two types of inking, and I'm using the little rainbow brushes. These go on your finger, and you can just dip into your ink and go into specific areas. So I'm going to be doing the dots first, and I'm going in a diagonal line with my colors in rainbow order. I won't be filling in the entire sheet because I'm going to be cutting this down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So once I have my dots colored in, now I can remove my stencil, and I'll be coloring the background using the rainbow brushes. So again, I'm going in that rainbow order, and I'm using the same color inks, just going right over those dots and giving a nice little background to these colors. Once I have all my stenciling and coloring done, I have a nice little panel that I can trim down. I learned the edge-to-edge shaker card idea from Cindy Norberg, and I'm just using a piece of packaging from one of my stamp sets, and I'm going to trim this down with my paper trimmer to where I have a 1/2 inch border on each side of my card panel. The way I've cut this is to leave both of those layers of plastic together, so I'll end up with two sheets that are just the same, so I can make another card later. I'm working on my tonic magnetic platform. This is really handy so that I can use those magnets in the center and it'll keep everything in alignment. To adhere my plastic in place, I'm using score tape, and this is the 1/4 inch width. So I'm going to put this all around the edges of my cardstock, and I won't be removing the backing paper. I'll be working on one side at a time, so I'll remove the backing paper from this right side, and now I can fold this plastic right over, and I'm going to make sure that I push it towards that tape to get a good seal. You can also use your bone folder once you're done and get a nice crease, and by doing that you can just rub that along that edge. I've done the other side at this point, and just now I have folded up the bottom. So now I have 3 sides of this sealed. For your corners, you may want to cut at an angle so that you get a nice little envelope flap for each side. To decorate the outside, I'm using a Simon Says Stamp die, and it says It's Your Day. I chose this one because the box around it, and it's a nice bold shape to add to my card. I'll be putting this on first before filling my shaker up because it's a nice flat surface, and I'm using a little bit of foam tape on the back side for some lift and dimension. Now it's time to start filling up my shaker with some sequins, and I'm using some Simon Says Stamp holographic rainbows because of all the great colors and the different sizes of sequins. At this point, you may want to shake it around just to see if you have enough or too much, and I ended up having too much, so I poured some out. Next, I'll be adding some Simon Says Stamp Unicorn Dust Chunky Glitter, which is also a white with a holographic finish to it. And finally, once you're happy with your amount of sequins and glitter, you can remove that backing and seal up your shaker. This is one of the easiest shaker ideas I've done, and I really liked using that packaging and recycling. Next, I'm preparing this panel to put it onto a folded cardstock, so I've added some more of the score tape. And the card base I'm using is our new Rainbows holographic cardstock, and I have just cut a sheet in half and then scored that in the center. Another brilliant tip that I got from Cindy Norberg is to use my MISTI to help me line up my card front panel onto my folded cardstock. Next, I'm going to start on the pop-up feature, and I have pre-stamped my little lady and have colored her in using my Copic markers. I've scored her folds and made sure that I can fold them forward and backwards to loosen up the paper. And all these fold lines are included in the die, so it cuts out the exterior and then it embosses those fold lines. So you just follow the lines and fold them back and forth until it loosens up. I will say that once you've stamped her, go ahead and do your coloring so that when you go and die cut her, those fold lines won't interfere with your coloring. To attach her in place, I'm adding a little bit of the score tape and I'm staying below the bottom fold. So this is just at her leg area, and I'll peel off the backing and place it to where the center line of her body lines up with the fold of the note card, and also make sure that the fold at the top matches as well. Once you have her stuck in place, give it a little bit of a test run to make sure that everything will fold flat and pop up. I'm adding a sentiment strip to the center of the card, and this is 4 inches, so I'm going to score this at 2 inches just in the center, and then I'll score each of the ends at a 1/2 inch. And once I have it scored, I'll pinch it with my fingers to crease my folds. To adhere this in place, I'm using a little bit of score tape at each of those ends to where it's not interfering with my folds. Then I can line up the sentiment strip center fold with the center fold of the card and remove the backing paper and press it in place. The extra folding at the outside will allow this message to fold up into the center and follow the rest of the pop-up design. These pop-up stamps and die designs are so fun, and it's such a nice surprise from when you have a really great outside of the card and a final surprise on the inside. I hope I've given you some inspiration to try an edge-to-edge shaker for a card front using some leftover plastic, sequins, and glitter, and then having a fun surprise on the inside with a pop-up. I have all the supplies listed in the description box below, and as always, thanks so much for watching.